It's time for Dodger Baseball. Live from Dodger Stadium, Sportsnet LA presents the Dodgers as they take on the San Francisco Giants. Hi, everybody, and a very pleasant Friday evening to you, wherever you may be. Yes, there'll be fireworks after the game, and when the Giants and Dodgers get together, you figure there'll be fireworks during the game. Anybody who has been to the two cities, San Francisco and Los Angeles, can tell you all the differences. And when you look at the Giants and the Dodgers, there's a lot of differences there. As you probably know, if you follow the Dodgers, they struggle on the road. Their record is 12-18, 6 under 500. The Giants have the number one, the best record on the road in the National League. They're 19-14. There's another big difference between the two teams, and that's the way they play at home. The Giants recently lost 9 straight, and their record is 17-18. But the Dodgers, they have a great record at home. They're 26-11. There's yet another big difference, and that would be how the teams react in the Western Division. For the Giants, like last year, struggling, and yet they won everything. They are 16-19 inside the Western Division. The Dodgers up atop. They're 26-17. And one last difference, and that would be the starting pitchers. Mike Bolsinger is perfect at home. He is 4-0. Chris Heston of no-hit fame, he's close to perfect on the road. He is 4-1. And with that, we'll tell you to pull up a chair. We got a good ball game coming up and a whole lot more right after this. Hi, everybody, and a very pleasant Friday evening to you, wherever you may be. Youngsters running out on the field. I'm happy to say one of them, a grandson, celebrating his 9th birthday, getting an autograph from Yasiel Puig. His name is Declan, and he's finally made it to the field here at Dodger Stadium, along with the other youngsters. And now it's time to take a look at the big guys who are about ready to go to work as young Declan goes sprinting off the field. For the Dodgers and the visiting Giants, another rivalry, another game. So far, it's been all San Francisco. Bruce Bochy's club, the world champions, have beaten the Dodgers 7 out of 9, 6 straight at home. Here's Bruce's lineup. Nori Aoki opens up in left field, and Joe Panik at second base. Angel Pagan in center, and Buster Posey behind the plate, hitting cleanup. Brandon Belt at first base. Brandon Crawford, the shortstop. Matt Duffy at third. Gregor Blanco in right field. And Chris Heston of no-hit fame on the mound. On the mound for the Dodgers, Mike Bolsinger, 4-0 here at Dodger Stadium, so he's really found a home. 0-1 on the road. And for Bolsinger, trying to pitch another tough ball game, knowing that runs have certainly been at a premium for the Dodgers for the last couple of weeks. In fact, ever since they were shut out 3 straight in San Francisco, the Giants hold 31 consecutive scoreless innings over the head of the Dodger hitters. Nori Aoki will lead it off. Aoki, a wonderful player. You might not know that much about him, but he is Mr. Clutch. He's hitting .558 with 2 out and runners in scoring position, believe it or not. He's batting .315, and he is the best contact hitter in the league. If he swings that bat 91% of the time, he's going to make contact. So the left-hand hitter checks in. Bolsinger ready, and the first pitch very high. Ball 1, 1-0. Aoki runs very well. He has 19 infield hits. He has stolen third base a couple of times, so he's quite a ball player. Takes in for a strike, and the count 1-1. Another thing, the Dodgers will have a left-hander going on Sunday, and the left-handers haven't stopped Aoki. He swings, pulls it foul, and the count 1-2 strikes. He's hitting .348 against left-handers. So Aoki, quite a leadoff man, stands 5'9", about 180, born in Japan. Signed back in 2010 and came up with the Brewers. The 1-2 pitch on the way. Nori swings, lifts one down the left field line, peeling foul and out of play. Aoki, as a youngster in high school, was a pitcher, moved to the outfield when he entered Waseda University, where he majored in human sciences. He's only one of 4 players to have at least 200 hits or more in a single season in Japanese professional ball. Little chopper to third, charging. Bolsinger gets out of the way. The throw to first is not nearly in time, as Turner had to make sure he didn't collide with Bolsinger. And Aoki, being the left-hand batter, had the extra 3 steps, so he has an infield single, and we are underway. So a chopper, Bolsinger cut across in front of Turner. It didn't bother Turner, but the ball wasn't hit that hard, and Aoki motors very well. So now they're going to have to worry about him on the base paths. He has stolen 12 out of 17, and the batter will be Joe Panik. So Aoki, who is quite a pest, takes the lead off. Panik checks in, and Bolsinger out of a stretch. The left-hand batter has a look at an off-speed pitch off the plate. Ball 1, 1-0 the count. Panik, another fellow who has not slowed down against left-handers. He's batting .345. So when Brett Anderson takes the mound on Sunday, he has 2 rather formidable hitters right at the top of the Giant lineup. 1 ball and no strikes the count. Bolsinger, a high set up around the collarbone and then backs off the rubber. Aoki goes back to the bag. Aoki with yet another infield single. He now has 18 of them. And the next pitch to Panic in for a strike, and the count 1-1. No score. We're just starting. Mike Bolsinger, 4 victories here at home, and up against a tough adversary in the Giants, who are 4 games above 500, 2.5 games back of the Dodgers. Now the 1-1 pitch on the way. A hard ground ball to short. On the bag is Rollins for 1. Easily doubles him up at first. So Panic, a sharp ground ball that had double play written all over it. And just like that, 2 down. Here are the Dodgers defensively. Gonzalez and Kendrick, Rollins and Turner, Ethier, Peterson and Puig, and Grandal catching Bolsinger. And with 2 down quickly, here is Angel Pagan. Pagan, certainly one of the unsung heroes, hitting a solid 272, has always given the Dodgers a bad time. That's reflected in the note that he's hitting .314 in his career here at Dodger Stadium. Pagan has had physical problems, but he is a dandy center fielder. Takes a strike, and the count 0-1. Pagan, and we've seen it happen so often, has the most piercing eyes, I think, of any player. I mean, if he's annoyed or whatever and he stares, let's say, at the umpire, or if he's called out and he goes back into the dugout, he puts those dark eyes out, and they are really impressive. 1 ball and 1 strike to Angel Pagan. 2 down, first inning, no score. Bolsinger from the first base side of the rubber, and the 1-1 pitch, a high strike up around the letters, outside part of the plate. Beautiful evening, 79 degrees. A beautiful summer's evening, and if you're a ball fan, you couldn't ask more. A lovely evening in a beautiful ballpark, and the Giants and the Dodgers waiting on Dag Buster Posey. The 1-2 pitch on the way is swung on, a one-hopper right at Howie Kendrick, and just like that, despite the leadoff single, the Giants go 1-2-3. And at the end of half an inning, Giants nothing, Dodgers coming up. Down immediately, and the Dodgers coming up now. Bottom of the first inning, no score. Here's Don Mattingly's lineup card. No dramatic changes. He has Yasiel Puig leading off in right field. Jock Peterson in center. Justin Turner takes over at third base. Adrian Gonzalez hits cleanup. Then you have Howie Kendrick, Andre Ethier, Yasmani Grandal, Jimmy Rollins, and Mike Bolsinger. So Yasiel Puig ready to check in, hitting .326, 3 home runs, 8 RBIs, trying to light a fire. He's been on base quite often of late. The Dodgers have not been able to move him around. Chris Heston of no-hit fame. Remember, he no-hitted the New York Mets. Big right-hander out of Sanford, Florida. And his first pitch to Puig is off the plate. Ball one, 1-0. Heston, signed by the Giants in 2009 out of East Carolina. Community college at Seminole, Florida. And the right-hander's 1-0 pitch on the way, and that's taken inside, ball two. So Yasiel Puig hit the first pitch the other night for a triple, only to have the Dodgers lead him. Here's the 2-0 pitch on the way. Puig, big slow curveball, swings, doesn't get it. Two balls and one strike the count. Heston comes back with a fastball fouled off, and the count 2-2. So Puig trying somehow to get something started against a very talented left-hander. Excuse me on that. Heston working on Puig, then the left-handed Peterson coming up. Chris Heston is the third Giant rookie pitcher to pitch a no-hitter as Puig fouls it off. The first rookie was the great Christy Mathewson way back in 1901 against the St. Louis Cardinals. The second, Jeff Tesreau, in 1912 against the Phillies. So it doesn't happen very often. Right hand already in the 2-2 pitch, and Puig gets a hopper to third sharply at Matt Duffy. Duffy throws low. Good scoop by Belt at the other end of it. And Puig is retired, and we have one down. We can take a look at the Giants defensively with Belt and Panic on the right side, Crawford and Duffy on the left, Aoki, Pagan, and Blanco in the outfield, Buster Posey handling Heston. Talking about Blanco in right field, he has just been reinstated. He was hit in the head by a thrown ball during batting practice. The ball thrown by Brandon Belt, and it nailed him. So under the concussion rule, he missed 7 days, but he's back in there playing in place of Hunter Pence. And here's Peterson, a half swing for a strike, and the count 0-1. Hunter Pence showed up long before the team. He was in the outfield. His left wrist is seriously bandaged and really strapped, but he was out there just throwing to keep his right arm healthy, if nothing else. So the Giants have to really miss Hunter Pence, who has always done well against the Dodgers. 1 ball and 1 strike to Jock Peterson. He promptly whacks one to center, but Pagan is at the other end of it. So a line drive out to center, and we have 2 down in the first inning, and Justin Turner coming up. So Turner bringing up some good numbers, hitting .315. He also has a half a dozen home runs, 26 runs batted in. And Chris Heston kind of straddles the rubber from one end to the other, waiting for Turner to check in. Justin, as well as been playing, exploded in June. He's hitting .340 in the month. Heston ready, delivers, flips a fastball in for a strike, 0-1. One of the things that Heston did when he was pitching his no-hitter, he finished up with a flourish. He struck out the last 3 batters. The next one off speed in there nicely. So Turner finds himself in a hole, 0-2. Heston is pitching on 4 days rest. He's not usually too effective. Slow curveball is slapped foul off to the right. If you look at Heston's performances on 4 days rest, he is 2-4. On 5 days rest, 2-1. On 6 days rest, not only 2-0, his earned run average is less than half a run. Strike 2 pitch on the way, fastball inside, and it nicked him. So Turner hit on an 0-2 fastball, and that will be bringing up Adrian Gonzalez. So Heston has one getaway, and Adrian Gonzalez checking in. So Turner hit, has to take the shin guard off before moving on to first base. Turner has now been hit 5 times. And here's Adrian Gonzalez. Adrian has dipped below 300, hitting .295, and the first pitch down and away, ball 1. Joe Panik a good 20 feet out in right field, but Crawford plays almost directly behind second base, not quite. Turner at first, held on by Brandon Belt. No score, bottom of the first inning. Heston out of his stretch, looks over his left shoulder at Turner. Now comes to Adrian Gonzalez in the dirt. Nice save by Posey to backhand what might have been a wild pitch. 2 balls and no strikes to count. When Heston was pitching his no-hitter, followed a rough 3 2/3 inning start. He's the first pitcher since Nolan Ryan to throw a no-hitter after failing to complete 4 innings in his previous start. That was against the Pirates. So he certainly bounced back in style. There are only 2 franchises to have no hitters in 4 straight years. Here's the 2-0 pitch on the way to Gonzalez, and that's taken for a strike. The Giants have had a no hitter 4 straight years, starting in 2012. Matt Cain, Tim Lincecum, then Lincecum again, and Heston. The Dodgers had 4 from 1962 to 65. Koufax, followed by Koufax, followed by Koufax, followed by Koufax. 2-1 the count to Adrian Gonzalez. One other note on no hitters, and we'll drop that subject. No hitters by franchise. The Dodger franchise, 22 no hitters. The Giants have 17, and of course Clayton last year, and Dave Righetti had one when he was pitching with the Yankees. So they're all over the place. Close play at first. The tag seems to be on him, but the hand got there in time. So close. So 2 balls and 1 strike the count. Gonzalez waiting, Turner at first. Panik very deep now in right field. The 2-1 pitch on the way. Adrian lines it to left field, but Aoki is at the other end of it, and that's that. So no runs, no hits, a man left at first, and at the end of an inning, no score. Singer going to work, got the base hit and then the double play. He has really started off in high style. Fewest runs allowed in his first 4 career home starts. 3 runs allowed in his 4 starts, and he's a perfect 4-0 here as he works on a very tough first ball hitter. Look out for Buster Posey. He has 20 hits on the first pitch. So Bolsinger ready, delivers, breaking ball, drops in for a strike. 0-1. Those 20 hits on the first pitch He's #1 in that area, wearing out the Dodgers, hitting .382 against them, .289 against the league. Bolsinger back with a curveball lifted into shallow right field. Puig coming in a hurry, makes a diving, sprawling effort, can't make the play, and Posey's aboard. Meanwhile, Howie Kendrick winds up in right center field. So for a split second there, and I'm sure Kendrick could hear him running. Howie making that long walk back to the infield. So on the slow curveball, Posey lifts it to shallow right. Kendrick went out, but Puig was coming in, diving, and unable to make it. So Posey, a fly ball single to right. And again, Bolsinger pitching out of the stretch. So the batter now is Brandon Belt, who brings up some power for the Giants. And a very disappointed Yasiel Puig, and a little bit shaken up on the effort. Bolsinger out of his stretch and delivers, and Belt takes a little high. Ball 1, 1-0. Belt hits more line drives than any other hitter in the National League. 41% of his contacts are line drives. Brandon off to a good start, hitting .272. Big swing and a miss. Belt 8 home runs, 28 runs batted in. 1 ball, 1 strike. Belt has struck out 63 times, so he pays the price. The 1-1 pitch on the way. Bolsinger delivers and drops it low. 2-1 to count. Mike Bolsinger, I believe, without any statistical reference, I think he throws the curveball more than just about any starting pitcher in the league. He is not one of those fellows that's going to throw 97. Here's the 2-1 pitch on the way. Mike Reddy delivers a change up, and he misses off the plate, though he's behind now, 3-1. Bolsinger is 6'2", 210 out of McKinney, Texas. That's about 31 miles north of Dallas. Originally signed by the Diamondbacks. He went to school at the University of Arkansas. 3-1 pitch on the way, and Belt takes a strike. Outside corner, 3-2. So Bolsinger pitching out of the stretch after Aoki got aboard. Now out of the stretch with Posey and Brandon Crawford waiting on deck. 3-2 the count. Out of the stretch goes Bolsinger, and the 3-2 pitch is taken. Strike 3 call. Belt was all set to go to first base, and Laz Diaz rings him up, and we have 1 down. First strikeout for Bolsinger. Little breaking ball that caught the outside corner.
Shortstop number 35, Brandon Crawford.
And now Brandon Crawford coming up. I have a little story to tell you. You have to go back to 1992. And despite the fact they are fixtured in San Francisco, back in 1992, there was a lot of rumors the Giants were going to move to Florida. The National League president was Bill White, former National League ball player. The San Francisco Chronicle wanted to take a picture, and they would use it to convince everybody to keep the Giants in San Francisco. And they found this cutest little 5-year-old leaning on a railing with a baseball cap and a skinned knee. And they took his picture and they used it in these big "Keep the Giants in San Francisco." That little kid, so cute, is Brandon Crawford. There goes the runner, and the throw down a little high, and in there safely is Posey. So Buster Posey, as a catcher, you don't expect him to do any running, and that's the first time he's tried it, and he steals second base. So Posey got a good jump, high throw, couldn't get down there quick enough for Rollins to make the tag. So Posey, a fly ball single, steals second, and with 1 out, Brandon Crawford trying to pick him up. The 2-0 pitch on the way. Brandon holds up, and the pitch is low, ball 3. It's amazing, isn't it, how some of those stories surface. Yeah, he had the normal 5-year-old haircut in those days. No beard, clean cut. Here's the 3-0 pitch. Brandon takes a strike, and they count 3-1. Crawford's an RBI man as well as a brilliant defensive shortstop. Posey at second with 1 out. The next pitch is swung on. Little ground ball wide at first. Gonzalez hangs it to Bolsinger, who immediately turns to make sure Posey is stopping at third. So Crawford grounds out. 2 down. Posey at third. And the batter is Matt Duffy. Matt Duffy has picked up a dozen of his RBIs by hitting the first pitch. So we'll see what he does tonight. Duffy has a half a dozen home runs, 31 runs batted in, and hitting a solid .293 and a .333 batting average against right-handers. So Duff, a local boy, checks in at the plate. Posey down the line from third. Bolsinger out of his stretch and drops that breaking ball in for a strike, and the count 0-1. Duffy in his last 4 games has a triple, a home run, and 5 RBIs. Very tough hitter with 2 out. Takes the next pitch for a strike, and the count 0-2. Well, don't let that count fool you. Duffy has 5 of his runs batted in, getting a base hit on a no-ball 2-strike count. So Posey down the line from third, 2 out. Bolsinger looks in to get a sign. He does not have a wild pitch. And the strike 2 pitch is hit in the air to right where Puig was stationed. And Yasiel makes the catch to end the inning. So no runs, 1 hit, a man left at third. And at the end of an inning and a half, no score. Staff Sergeant from the Marine Corps, Jaime Soto, getting 5s as he works his way up the aisle, and well he should. Meanwhile, checking on Buster Posey as Heston makes his first pitch to Howie Kendrick in for a strike. When Buster Posey stole second base in the second inning, it was his 7th career stolen base. Now the strike 1 pitch to Kendrick, sprayed foul into the backstop. 0-2 the count to Howie. Kendrick, a fixture at second base, doing a great job and doing exceptionally well with the bat at home. He's hit in 8 out of 10, batting .283, but he's got better numbers than that here at Dodger Stadium, and he promptly line drive base hit into left field. In the 35 games that Howie Kendrick has played at home, he's hitting better than .333. So he straightens one out into left field. And the batter now will be Andre Ethier. So Kendrick at first, no score, bottom of the second inning. Andre Ethier with 4 triples, 9 home runs, hitting .278. And at home, an even better hitter, .310. Dodgers have won 26 games, 26 of the 38 at home. Heston ready. Fastball down and away. Ball 1. Ethier not quite ready to get back in. Checking with Lorenzo Bundy. Yasmani Grandal on deck. Bottom of the second, no score. Now the 1-0 pitch on the way. That's a breaking ball strike at the knees. Probably a little hard slider at 88. So 1 ball and 1 strike to count. Heston's big problem pitching on the road. Then he got himself squared away, and this year he is 4-1 on the road, 2-4 at home. The runner goes, chopper to short. In front of the shortstop is Duffy to make the play, because Crawford had broken to cover as Kendrick took off for second. So a nice play by Matt Duffy. Kendrick advances to second on a slow roller wide of third. So Kendrick got a good jump and a high chopper. Crawford couldn't come back to get it, so he kept on going to cover third. And it's a 5-3 out. Kendrick taking second. And the Dodgers will have Yasmani Grandal come up, followed by Jimmy Rollins. Grandal hitting .272, 8 home runs, all of them batting left-handed, or the other way around, all against right-hand pitching. The switch hitting catcher takes ball 1. No runs, 2 hits for the Giants. No runs, 1 hit for the Dodgers. Grandal, like so many other Dodgers, struggling for the moment. With a left-hand hitter up, Crawford is straight up the middle, so he's really holding Kendrick on at second base. Now the 1-0 pitch on the way to Grandal. Heston comes back, fastball that's going to hit into left center, base hit. So easily scoring on the play is Kendrick, as Grandal delivers and gives the Dodgers a 1-0 lead. So having been blanked 32 innings by Giant pitching, the Dodgers finally break through. Single by Grandal, and that brings in Kendrick. So Jimmy Rollins coming up. Grandal clean as a whistle, base hit, and a run batted in. Jimmy Rollins hitting left-handed. Overall batting average 200, 196 left-handed, and a big curveball down at his feet. 1 ball and no strikes. Rollins checking with Lorenzo Bundy. Jimmy has reached base safely 7 of the last 9 games played against the Giants. The 1-0 pitch on the way off the plate on a straight change, and the count 2 balls and no strikes. So Heston giving it a battle. He's pitched very well against ball clubs above 500. His earned run average 2.2 against the really good teams. And he loves to pitch at night. The 2-0 pitch is high, ball 3. Heston at night is 5-2 and an earned run average of 2.3. Batting average against him 187 as Bolsinger waits on deck. In the daytime, Heston is 1-3 and an earned run average of about 7. 3-0 the count to Jimmy Rollins. Grandal at first, 1 out. Dodgers lead 1-0. Heston comes back with a fastball down the pipe, and the count 3-1. Heston is not overpowering. He's not throwing 95, 97. But he pitches exceptionally well on the road and at night. 3-1 count. Heston at the belt. Right-hander ready and deals and gets another strike. 3-2. 1 out, second inning. We told you how effective he is on 6 days rest, but he's pitching on 4 days rest. Heston set, very deliberate. Grandal short lead at first, not going anywhere. And Rollins a fly ball slightly left center. Pagan moves over to make the catch, and Grandal holds on. So 2 down, and Mike Bolsinger coming up.
Mike Bolsinger.
Bolsinger with the bat. Might just as well not have a bat. Mike, every inch a pitcher. He is 0 for 18. He does have a sacrifice. And the one thing, and this always makes them dangerous, he has struck out 8 times. So 8 times in 18 at-bats, even slightly below 500 makes him dangerous that he might make contact. Sure he does. Hits a ground ball to Crawford. Quick feed to Panic, and they get the force play on Grandal. However, the Dodgers get a leadoff single by Howie Kendrick and a base hit by Grandal. They cash him in. And at the end of 2, 1-0 Dodgers. Traditions, baseball and fireworks, July 4th, Dodgers and Mets, and stay after the game. See the sky light up with a spectacular 4th of July fireworks show presented by Cirque du Soleil. For more information, go to Dodgers.com/promotions. 1-0 in favor of the Dodgers, 3rd inning, and the Giants will have Gregor Blanco, then Chris Heston, and Nori Aoki, the leadoff man. Beautiful evening temperature, 79 when the game started. It's dropped a couple of notches as Blanco checks in. We mentioned it at the start of the game. Blanco was accidentally hit in the head by a thrown ball by Brandon Belt between innings back in Philadelphia. Had a concussion, so he missed 10 games. So he's delighted to be back in the lineup. Gregor's from Caracas in Venezuela. Left-hand hitter takes a look at a pitch for a strike, and the count 0-1. When Blanco got to the big leagues, his father flew from Venezuela to watch him play Strike one pitch off the plate. And Blanco told his dad he'd point to him if he hit a home run. And sure enough, Blanco did go deep, hitting one of 2 3-run home runs in the 11th inning of a 9-4 victory, but he forgot to point to his dad. This time he bangs one inside third, down the line for a base hit. Quickly, Ethier is on it to get it back in. Well, after he got to the dugout, he realized, oh my gosh, I forgot. So he came out of the dugout, and then he pointed to his dad while Matt Cain was coming up to the plate to hit. So Blanco with a base hit to left field. And here is Heston. Heston with the bat has 3 sacrifices. So you get the feeling he'll try to get one down against Bolsinger. Mike will look over at Blanco. And a throw over there. Blanco has not played in a lot of games, 48. And he has stolen 4 out of 6. He runs pretty well. Blanco has stolen as many as 26 bases for the Giants. Time at the plate requested by Yasmani Grandal. Laz Diaz, the plate umpire, indicating that it was the Dodger catcher who called time or asked for it. Now we're ready. Bolsinger out of his stretch. The bunt attempt foul back, and the count 0-1. By the way, Laz Diaz, 16 years in the big leagues. He worked his way up, and then he's been in the Division Series, the American League Championship Series, 2007 World Series, also the All-Star Game. So he's a veteran umpire who's been right there in some of the big games over the last few years. Laz Diaz. 0-1 the count. Heston takes a look down to third base to get a sign. 0-1. We'll watch Blanco, and so will Bolsinger. Heston shows bunt and backs off the rubber. So Gregor Blanco with a leadoff single, which means the leadoff man has reached base on a base hit in all 3 innings against Bolsinger. Aoki in the first with a single, Posey in the second with a single, Blanco with a base hit, and the pitch a strike to Heston, and the count 0-2. So for Bolsinger, a very dangerous way to pitch, allowing that leadoff man to get aboard. Aoki, the pest who makes constant contact, he's on deck. Strike 2 pitch on the way. They still want him to try to bunt, and he fouls it, and he is struck out. Second strikeout on the bunt attempt. And the batter is Nori Aoki.
Number 23, Nori Aoki.
So Aoki checking in. Back in 2012 in April, Aoki's first major league home run broke up a perfect game, and that wasn't the best part. Aoki's home run traveled 213 feet. That's right. More in a moment. The pitch of the plate, Nori takes low, ball 1. It was a line drive that skipped past Rockies left fielder Carlos Gonzalez, rolled all the way to the fence, and Aoki circled the bases for an inside the park home run. Solid leadoff man. Giants signed him in January, and he is certainly worth the money. There's a hopper by 2 gloves. Gonzalez and Kendrick on his way to third. In there head first goes Blanco. They have an expression in baseball. Talk about a ball that has eyes. Somehow it avoids gloves. Well, Aoki's ball just got by the diving Adrian Gonzalez and just got by Howie Kendrick. And with a base hit, Blanco goes all the way to third. So the Giants threatening yet again. Aoki, the pest, is 2 for 2. And the batter will be Joe Panik. So Nori Aoki at first. Over at third is Blanco. Dodger lead 1-0, but it's in jeopardy. Panik grounded into a double play in the first inning. Panik has been pretty much of a Mr. Clutch hitter. Late and close situations, he's come up with 9 RBIs. He swings, rolls it foul outside of first, and the count 0-1. From the 9th inning on into extra innings, Panik has a half a dozen RBIs and comes into the game hitting .309. Panik in and out of the box. Now Joe settles in. First and third for the Giants. 1 out. Dodgers lead 1-0. Top of the third. Bolsinger, a high set. Back he comes. Slow curveball. Drops it in there. As I mentioned earlier, I believe he throws more breaking balls than any other pitcher in the big leagues. And he's got a dandy. And he spun that thing in nicely. So 0-2 the count. Panik has 8 hits on an 0-2 count. So despite the count, he's tough. No balls, 2 strikes. Bolsinger ready. And the next pitch in the dirt. Nice save by Yasmani Grandal. Bolsinger with a runner at third. Does not have a wild pitch. So Blanco at third. Over at first, Aoki. And of course, Aoki has stolen a dozen. They have to worry about him as well. So 1-2 the count to Panik with Pagan on deck. Bolsinger out of his stretch. And the 1-2 pitch on the way. Swung on. Line drive. Caught by Kendrick. Throws to first too late. A sinking line drive that might have hit him right on the left ankle if he didn't glove the ball. So Panik hits it hard, and Howie makes a big play. Boy, that thing was hit hard. Panik going back, grumbling to himself, I'm sure, losing a base hit and a run batted in. So now Angel Pagan coming up with runners at first and third and 2 out. Angel Pagan grounded out. Panik a picture of frustration. Kendrick a picture of relief. And now here's Angel Pagan hitting .271. Angel not quite ready to get in. So in the inning, Blanco single. Heston failed to get the bunt down. That's a big play. Then Aoki gets a base hit, but instead of a run, the Giants had first and third, and Panik's line drive caught by Kendrick. So here's Pagan, and he has a look at a pitch that gets away in the dirt, ball 1, and a scrambling stop by Grandal. It wasn't that Blanco could have scored, but certainly Aoki, with his speed, he could easily have taken second base. Pagan holding his right hand up, saying, don't go anywhere. But I still think Aoki probably would have made second. So 1 ball and no strikes with Buster Posey on deck. Pagan had a great April. If you look at his numbers, you think he's wearing down. He takes a slow curveball for a strike. Angel in April hit .341. In May, he hit .275. And this month, only .164. Pagan has had physical problems in the past, especially with the back. Left hand hitter waiting, and the 1-1 pitch coming up. Bolsinger set, very deliberate. Pagan doesn't want to wait and backs out. So Bolsinger's been in trouble in the sense of giving up a leadoff single. He has Buster Posey waiting on deck and trying to get Pagan and get out of the inning. Now the 1-1 pitch on the way to Angel, and that's way off the plate. So 2 balls and 1 strike the count. Pagan, when we mentioned he might be wearing down, he's 34 years old, but he's been playing as a pro since 1999. First came up to the big leagues with the Cubs back in 2006. Put those dark eyes out on Bolsinger. And the 2-1 pitch. Angel rolls it foul, off speed. 2-2. You're not going to get any of those 90-mile-an-hour fastballs from Bolsinger. Changes, slow curves, and strikes. So 2-2 to count to Angel Pagan. Giants have always played better with Pagan in the lineup. Since he came to the Giants, their winning percentage is pretty well over 500. When he's not in the lineup, it's under 500. So the Deuces wild pitch with the runner Aoki going on a foul ball. So Nori will have to go back and try it again. Though the Deuces are wild. 2 balls, 2 strikes, 2 out. 2 on at first and third. And the Dodgers leading 1-0. Blanco looking over at the Dodger dugout, having a conversation with somebody in the far end of the dugout. All right, Angel checks back in. He's 6'2" and a good 200-pounder, bends at the knees and waist. So that 6'2" smalls down quite a bit. 2-2 pitch coming up. Pagan takes off the plate. Another maddening 80-mile-an-hour pitch. So 3-2 with 2 down, and that means Aoki is going. There's that slow breaking ball just off the plate, and Pagan able to stay back and run the count all the way. 3-2. Aoki ready to go. Here goes Bolsinger, slow and off the plate to load him up. So Pagan gets a big walk. Aoki moves to second. Holding at third is Blanco. And here's Buster Posey. He had that fly ball single to right field in the second inning, and then promptly stole second base. That had to shake up the Dodgers, and now he's really trying to shake him up as he checks in with the bases loaded. And again, remember, he is dynamite on the first pitch, and if Bolsinger is trying to get ahead of him, it'll be quite a battle here. So with the bases loaded and 2 out, first pitch swung on and fouled away. 0-1 to count. He's had 15 RBIs on the first pitch, 5 home runs on the first pitch. The Buster, who means everything to the ball club, whether he's catching or playing first base. Posey waiting. Bolsinger trying to be very careful. Now the strike 1 pitch on the way. Posey takes another strike. 0-2. If you're wondering about grand slams, Posey has 2. He hit one at Milwaukee against former Dodger Chris Capuano, and he also hit one against Atlanta last year. No balls and 2 strikes. Bolsinger out of a stretch. Right-hander in a jam again. Comes back with a pitch low, blocked by Grandal. 1-2 to count. So Blanco singled to left. Heston failed to get the bunt. That's a big play. Aoki singled Blanco to third. Panic drilled one, caught by Kendrick. Pagan went 3-2 and walked to load him up. And Posey's up there. 1 ball and 2 strikes. Bolsinger, right foot on the rubber. Mike reading Yasmani Grandal. Now the 1-2 pitch on the way. Posey takes just off the plate. That's about as hard as Bolsinger throws. 89 miles an hour. Posey able to take a borderline pitch. In fact, Grandal tried to frame it and pull it into the strike zone. Posey wouldn't go for it, neither would the plate umpire, Laz Diaz. So Buster waits on a 2-2 pitch with the bases loaded, 2 out. And the next one is swung on and hit foul. Steve Decker, the third base coach, fielding that, flipping it. So that ball got him on the hip, but he just folded over it. I still wish they would wear helmets with the ears covered, but no, they're too macho for that. Yes, that ear. 2 balls and 2 strikes. Bolsinger doing a little high wire act here. And the 2-2 pitch to Posey is a curveball hit deep into left field. Back goes Ethier. It's a grand slam home run. Buster's third, and the Giants lead 4-1. So Posey's third grand slam in his career. That picks up a big 4. And the Giants now have a commanding 4-1 lead. Big, slow, hanging curveball. And Posey knew exactly what to do with it. For Mike Bolsinger, that would be the 3rd home run that he's allowed, but it was a whopper. A slam by Buster. So 4-1 Giants. Now the pitch to Brandon Belt. Fastball low, ball 1, 1-0. Bolsinger has been getting by even though he's behind in the count. This year, after batters have gotten ahead, they've only hit about $1.50 against him, but tonight he gets hurt. So 4-1 San Francisco in the 3rd inning. The 2-0 pitch on the way. Off speed, hit to the hole at short. Backhanded by Rollins. Low throw. Nice pick by Gonzalez at the other end of it. So for Bolsinger, in his first 4 starts, he allowed 3 earned runs. In one swing of the bat, he gives up 4. And at the end of 2.5 innings, 4-1 San Francisco. Four to 1 Giants thanks to Buster Posey. Puig fouls the first pitch away, and the count 0-1. I can just imagine Posey's eyes lighting up on that big slow curveball like an apple hanging on a branch, and he turned it into applesauce. 4-1 San Francisco. Yasiel Puig tapped to third in the first inning, 0 for 1. Right-hander Heston back with a fastball, swung on and missed. His fastball at 88. Again, not throwing that hard. He made 28 pitches in the first 2 innings, did Bolsinger, and then made 28 in the 3rd inning alone. 1-2 the count. Heston got out of a jam in the 2nd inning, although he was touched up for a run. The 1-2 pitch, fisted foul outside of first base and down the line. So Yasiel jammed on a 90-mile-an-hour fastball. It's not really the number, it's the movement, and the later the better. Heston ready to go back. 1 ball and 2 strikes. Right-hander ready and delivers, and that one is popped in the air on the infield. It will be the second baseman Panic making the catch. So Puig pops up. He's 0 for 2.
Number 31.
And the batter will be Jock Peterson, who flied to center in the first inning. Peterson, like all the Dodgers, struggling. His average was at 249 when he went to the plate. But his average has really gotten beaten up. Peterson has hit safely in 7 out of 9 against San Francisco. Left-hand hitter waiting. Diamond defense on the right side, and Jock pulls it sharply by the diving belt and down the line. Over to come up with it is Blanco. Guns it into second, but Peterson is in there with a stand-up double. That would be his 10th double of the year, to go along with a triple and 17 home runs. So Jock Peterson, a 1-out double to right, just over the bag, just by Belt's glove, and down the line. Blanco over to get it, but Peterson runs very well into second base easily. Jock looking for a ride home, and it's Justin Turner trying to give it to him. Turner hit by a pitch in the first inning. Now checking in. Giants 4, Dodgers 1. Grand slam by Buster Posey, the 3rd of his career. Turner lines one foul down the right field line. 0-1 the count. Good sized crowd on hand. Somewhere above 45,000. You have to guess, flirting almost for 50,000 on this beautiful summer's night. The Giants, the Dodgers, and then fireworks after the game, if not during. The strike one pitch on the way in the dirt. Nice block there by Buster Posey. By the way, in talking about Posey, with 2 out, he hits a grand slam. The Giants are hitting as a team better than .290 with runners in scoring position. The Dodgers are down the ladder. They were .227, and they've pretty well struggled again tonight. Now the 1-1 pitch on the way. Swung on and missed. 1-2 the count. Another note on Posey. As a catcher, where he really expends a lot of energy, he has 8 home runs, and he's hitting .287 with 32 runs batted in. In 16 games as a first baseman, he's hitting .326 with a home run and 5 runs batted in. 1 ball and 2 strikes to Justin Turner. Big fake and a turn by Heston to see what Peterson was up to. One ball and 2 strikes. 4-1 favor of the Giants in the 4th. 1-2 pitch on the way is taken low. Another thing about Pussey's home run. Posey now has 10 home runs. The Giants were the only team without a home run hitter that did not hit double figures. So they came in with Posey with 9 home runs and Crawford with 9 home runs. But Posey now gets on the board. 2-2 pitch on the way to Turner is taken low in the dirt. 3-2 the count. Waiting his turn, Adrian Gonzalez hit the ball hard first at bat, but lined out to left field to Nori Aoki. Turner back up. 3-2 the count. Heston, for the moment, has hit a batter. Turner has not walked anybody yet. And the 3-2 pitch coming up. Heston delivers, slider, nubbed up along third, foul, and the count stays 3-2. So the battle continues. Interesting that Heston, pitching for the Giants, and pitched a no-hitter. He was signed by the Giants, and he was actually released in 2013 by the Giants, but he has come back. 3-2 after that big slider that he just served up. And the next pitch, fastball, and that's hit in the air, foul off to the right, out of play, and the count remains 3-2. Heston's major league debut with the Giants was not one that he would like to even think about. It was September the 13th, 2014. The Dodgers scored 17 runs against the Giants in that game. What a forgettable debut. 3-2 pitch to Justin Turner, line to left field. Aoki, a diving try, but can't make the catch. The ball goes to the bullpen gate. Scoring easily is Peterson on a double by Justin Turner. And it's 4-2 San Francisco. So back-to-back doubles by Peterson and Turner. Still only one out. Boy, that ball was drilled. Aoki racing to his right, diving, but missed it by a good foot at least.
Number 23, Adrian Gonzalez.
So Turner blisters a double, picks up a run, and now here's Adrian Gonzalez. Justin Turner continues his remarkable hitting. He has 11 doubles to go along with his 6 home runs. Giant lead is 4-2, and Gonzalez now trying to get Turner home. Heston set at the belt, looks back and comes to his hitter and works it away, ball 1. With Gonzalez up there, Matt Duffy is way over to the hole at short. I'm sure it's a very tempting for Justin Turner to think about stealing third. He's held on by Brandon Crawford because of the left-hand hitter. 1-0 pitch on the way, swung on, and that's a base hit into right center. Turner will score easily, and the Giant lead is 4-3. So Adrian Gonzalez, a base hit, run batted in, and the Dodgers trying to come back now. Down 4-1. It's now 4-3. Dave Righetti going out to the mound to talk to Heston, who, let's face it, does not look like a no-hit pitcher. So Gonzalez coils and stings the ball into center for the base hit. Scoring is Turner without a play. 4 runs, 5 hits for the Giants. 3 runs, 5 hits for the Dodgers, with 1 out in a wild 3rd inning. All right, Righetti has delivered his message. And Howie Kendrick coming up. Remember, tomorrow's game is a 4:15 game, and that'll be Tim Hudson against Carlos Frias. Sunday, a 5:05 game. That'll be Tim Lincecum and Brett Anderson. Kendrick single to left, scored a run in the 2nd inning, and Howie takes a strike. He also made a good play on that sinking line drive hit by Panic in the top of the 3rd. No balls and 1 strike to Howie. He does his best hitting here at Dodger Stadium. Heston delivers, fastball, got it in there at 90. That's as hard as he has thrown, 90 miles an hour. And he's now made 50 pitches. No balls, 2 strikes, 1 out. Heston at the belt, right-handed delivers, fastball down and away. His fastball is basically a 2-seamer. There's a lot of sink to it. Then he has that slow curve, the slider, and a changeup. They say his best pitch is his curveball. So 1-2 the count. 27-year-old right-handed delivers. Chopper up the middle. Crawford is on it. Quick feed for one. They will turn it for two. And that's the end of the inning. However, the Dodgers had back-to-back doubles by Peterson, doubles by Turner, single by Gonzalez. And at the end of three, Giants 4, Dodgers 3. LA is brought to you by the Dodge Challenger. With an EPA estimated 30 highway MPG, this car was made for driving in California. Visit Dodge.com today. Fourth inning, 4-3 in favor of San Francisco. The skid marks of the sunset up there in the sky as we move to the fourth inning. Interesting, a turnabout for the Dodgers. During the 4 games with Texas with runners in scoring position, the Dodgers were a somewhat embarrassing 2 for 27. Tonight against the Giants, they perked up. They're 3 for 3. So here's Brandon Crawford, grounded out, first at bat. Ball one. One ball and no strikes. And ball two. So Mike Bolsinger roughed up there in the third inning. Gave up 2 singles, a line drive that was caught by Howie Kendrick, and then the grand slam. And there's ball 3. So Crawford starting it off. Brandon grew up a Giants fan because his father was a rabid Giants fan. 3-0 pitch to Brandon. Curveball strike, 3-1. Crawford's been struggling last 2 weeks. It is a long year. Last 2 weeks he's hit just .204. And another strike. Crawford had a career high of 9 home runs, and then last year he hit 10, and he's just one shy of that. Last year he didn't hit his 9th until the middle of September. 3-2. And down he goes. So Crawford goes down swinging, 1 out in the 4th inning, and the batter will be Matt Duffy, who has done a very good job at third base.
Number 5, Matt Duffy.
Matt Duffy grew up in Long Beach, living in the same house since he was 1 year old. Began taking baseball very seriously when he was 13. Foul ball. At the end of high school, he hadn't committed to a college program, but he had to be pretty good. USC and Cal State Bakersfield offered partial scholarships. Then he played in a tournament of stars in North Carolina. That's inside. Pretty much had a week-long tryout of sorts for Team USA. First fella he saw on that club, Bryce Harper. 1-2. The next thing, Duffy was hitting third on that team. Performed well enough to catch the attention of the coaches from Long Beach State, and they offered him a scholarship. Interesting, as he said, I grew up watching Long Beach State, and I had to go all the way across the country to get them to notice me. Got him on the inside corner. So Crawford and now Duffy go down on strikes. And with 2 out, the batter will be Gregor Blanco.
Number 7, Gregor Blanco.
So a little of this, a little of that. 4 strikeouts for Mike Bolsinger. Giants lead 4-3. Here's Blanco, who led off the 3rd inning with a single to left field. And that was the beginning of a very troublesome inning. 7 men came to the plate, and Posey picked up 4 RBIs with his grand slam. But it's back to a 1-run game. In the dirt to the backstop. 2-0 the count to Gregor Blanco. No word as to when they think Pence will be ready, but in watching him with that left wrist completely bandaged and covered, all he could do is keep his right arm and threw a lot of strikes a couple hours before the game. 2-1. And that just missed. Picked up the corner, 2-2. Gregor Blanco has a twin, Gregory. Gregory played in the Angels and the Pirates minor leagues as a catcher, but eventually hung him up and became a phys ed teacher. And got him. So all Bolsinger does, you talk about a turnabout. He gives up 4 runs in the 3rd inning and strikes out the side in the 4th. And at the end of 3.5 innings, 4-3 Giants. Remember, friends, Monday, July 6th, Dodgers and Phillies help celebrate the Dodgers' all-time leader in stolen bases, the mouse that roared, Maury Wills. And the first 40,000 fans in attendance receive a Maury Wills bobblehead presented by New Balance. For more information, go to Dodgers.com/promotions. Andre Ethier, Yasmani Grandal, and then Jimmy Rollins. Bolsinger, striking out the side, has made 71 pitches. Heston making his 52nd, and the pitch off the plate, ball one. Andre grounded to third, 0 for 1. Big slow curveball in there. 1 ball and 1 strike to count. Chris Heston of no-hit fame. 1-2. Heston is a Floridian. He grew up in Palm Bay. That's near Melbourne, and Melbourne is up the road from where the Dodgers used to train at Vero Beach. He has a younger sister who's a physical therapist. 1-2. Ground ball to the hole. Sliding effort by Panic, but he can't make it. It'll be a base hit for Andre Ethier, leading off matters in the 4th inning. Joe Panic, close but no cigar. And the batter will be Yasmani Grandal. So the sliding effort, the glove was there, but the ball wasn't. And Andre's aboard. Looks like he might have played it, but it went off the glove. Grandal singled to center in the 2nd inning, driving in a run and lifting a fly ball, very playable to Pagan. Ethier holding, and we have 1 away here in the 4th inning. Giants lead 4-3. If you joined us late, the Giant 4 came in a hurry. A grand slam home run by Buster Posey. Dodgers with 2 hits got a run in the 2nd inning. 2 doubles and a single got him 2 more. So it's 4-3 San Francisco. And Jimmy Rollins has flied to center, checking in. Fastball just off the plate, ball 1. Off speed, pull foul. One of the Christmas presents that Chris Heston bought his dad, he actually built it. It was a wood and glass case, and in the case he placed the jersey, the hat, the ball glove, and the lineup from his first major league start back in September, the end of 2014, and he said his father cried. 1 ball and 1 strike. Big chop of the belt. He goes down for 1. Crawford returns the favor. Double play. So no runs, a leadoff single, and nothing else. And at the end of 4, it remains 4-3 San Francisco. The next episode of Connected With, Director of Player Development Gabe Kapler discusses maintaining the health of the team. Plus, the native Angelino talks about his childhood memories at Dodger Stadium. So don't miss Connected With Gabe Kapler. That'll be tomorrow at 8 p.m. on Sportsnet LA. 4 runs, 5 hits for the Giants. 3 runs, 6 hits for the Dodgers. And Chris Heston followed by Aoki and then Panik. Talking again about Chris, and it kind of links up with Sunday being Father's Day and the case that he made. Another thing he did to thrill his dad, he got Willie Mays to sign a baseball and presented that to his father, who just loved it. And a base hit up the middle. So Heston now has 6 hits as he singles to center. And again, with one respite, Bolsinger is having a lot of trouble with the leadoff man. Aoki led off the first, base hit. Posey led off the second, base hit. Blanco led off the third, base hit. Heston leads off the fifth, base hit. The only leadoff man who failed to get a hit, Crawford, struck out in the fourth. And a strike to Aoki. But the pest is just that to the Dodgers. He just drives them crazy. And he's 2 for 2 tonight. Oh, and 1. And a big chopper on the bag for 1. Tag down there. Heston will run into it. So 2 down. Double play 3-6. First double play turned by the Dodgers.
Joe Panik.
Giants have turned 2 in 4 innings against the Dodgers. So Joe Panik hit into a double play. Lined out to second. Sinking line drive. Kendrick caught right about at his left ankle. So now we've had 4 double plays in the game, 2 for each side. Panik, very good hitter, hitting over 300. Lays off that pitch almost in the dirt. 2 balls and no strikes. Now he's behind 3-0. Basically, Bolsinger's fastball, they say it's as high as 94. I don't think we've ever seen him throw that hard. 3-0 pitch. Off speed for ball 4. He has this slider, a little bit of a cutter and a curveball, and of course the change.
Center fielder,
so following the double play, Panik walks, and the batter is Angel Pagan. Bolsinger's first walk. No, make it 2. He walked Pagan. So Angel is 0 for 1. His walk preceded the grand slam hit by Buster Posey. And ball 1. What Pagan did was try to get out of the way. He was afraid he might get nailed by Yasmani Grandal. Grandal ready to make a throw, and Pagan said, I'll get down and give you all the room you want. 1 ball and no strikes. Panik cautiously draws a throw anyway. Panik has stolen 2 bases, 2 out of 3. Pagan at the plate, talking a little bit. I'm not sure. Maybe he was talking to Grandal. 1 ball and no strikes. Off speed, 2-0. Now Grandal a little unhappy about that pitch, going out to talk to Mike about it. You wonder about Panic. They might run him with 2 out. If they fail to get him, Pagan is a pretty good man to pick him up. And if they get Panic, okay, then you start the next inning with your number 3 hitter. So Angel having a laugh with Laz Diaz. Boshi doesn't find anything funny, nor does Mattingly. They're men at work. It's 4-3 San Francisco. And remember, the Dodger lead 2.5 games over the Giants. So a lot at stake. And ball 3. Well, Bolsinger trying not to think about the on-deck hitter. They just roughed him up for a grand slam home run, but Posey waits. 3-0 to Angel Pagan. Off speed and drops on the corner for a strike. 77 miles an hour. Three and 1 to Angel. Well, watch Panic. He's not going. And the next pitch, a strike. Pagan a little ticked off on that. Can't believe it wasn't ball 4. Yeah, he thought it was a little high, and Laz Diaz said it got the zone. So big pitch now with Posey on deck. There goes Panic, and the ball is fouled away down the left field line back into the seats. A reminder tomorrow, a 4:15 game. Tim Hudson, Carlos Frias. Then Sunday, a 5:05 game. Tim Lincecum and Brett Anderson. Pagan wants another bat after that foul ball. Four to 3 favor of the Giants, thanks to a grand slam by Posey, who's on deck. Pagan, who comes from a very tough area in Puerto Rico, Rio Piedras. He was originally drafted by the Mets back in 1999. Panic ready to go. 3-2, and that's strike 3 call. And Pagan goes backing away while talking to Diaz, but didn't say anything inflammatory, not to the umpire, but he just did to himself. Take another look at that pitch. He thought he was jobbed on the first one. This time he thinks it's ball 4 inside. Comes up empty twice, and it's still 4-3 Giants. LA is brought to you by your Southern California Toyota dealers. Now, during Toyota's summer savings, you can save big on any 2015 Camrys. And by Jack in the Box. Taste the new black pepper cheeseburger today, only at Jack in the Box. Mike Bolsinger up there with a strike one count. Now it's 0-2 as we go to the bottom of the fifth inning. Bolsinger, then Puig and Peterson. 4 runs, 6 hits for the Giants. 3 runs, 6 hits for the Dodgers. And Mike goes down swinging at an off-speed breaking ball, and we have 1 away. The biggest difference between the two pitches, you would have to say, would be strikeouts. Bolsinger has struck out 6. This was the first strikeout for Chris Heston. And remember, we mentioned at the start of the game, when he pitched his no-hitter against the Mets, he struck out the last 3 batters. Here's Puig. High pop foul. Belt coming across, has a play. He has the ball. Just to show you, with Ruben Tejada at the plate for the Mets. Here's Heston, fastball, call, strike 3, and Chris had himself a no-hitter. He dropped the ball when Posey threw it back to him, but I'm sure one of his teammates recovered it for him. Pretty nice to get a hug from Madison Bumgarner, your ace. So he has 1 out here in the 5th inning. Now he gets Puig for the 2nd out. And the batter, Jock Peterson, flied to center, double to right. Look out for the first pitch with Jock, but that's off the plate, ball 1. His double was on the first pitch. You know what Peterson is hitting when he puts the first pitch in play? .481. Slow curve for a strike. And 5 home runs on the first pitch. He has 17. 1 ball, 1 strike. And a fly ball to left. Aoki is there. Boy, that didn't take long. A 1-2-3 inning. And at the end of 5, 4-3 Giants. Had never done before and never did since. It was about a half hour before the game with the Cubs, and I was sitting in the Dodger dugout with pitcher Carl Erskine. Erskine was a good pal of mine anyway, and he had a baseball in his hand, and he tossed it up and down, and he said, "Vinny, I wonder what this ball had in store for me today." Well, I went back up to the booth. He went out and pitched, and he pitched a no-hitter. In fact, he should have had a perfect game. He walked a hitter. You're better than the hitter he walked. Let's go back to this one. Ball 1 to Buster Posey. Carl Erskine walked a pitcher who had been a Dodger named Willard Ramsdell. High fly ball, very playable. Puig is there. 1 out. Yeah, that was the year 1952. A long time ago. Dodgers won the pennant, lost in the World Series to the Yankees. Here's Brandon Belt, struck out, grounded to short, 0 for 2. Erskine, a true gentleman, lives in Anderson, Indiana, with his wife Betty and Jimmy. And that's going to go to the gap in left center. Neither man can cut it off, Ethier or Peterson, and Belt goes jogging into second base with a 1-out double. So Belt gets a runner in scoring position with Crawford and Duffy coming up. Just stayed inside the ball. That's a big phrase these days. Stays inside and then doubles to left center. For Brandon Belt, that's his 18th double. So he does strike out a lot, 60 some odd times, but he can help. So Crawford grounded out and struck out. Brandon 0 for 2. Ball 1. Daniel Coulombe just recently called up when they sent Chris Heisey down. Coulombe throwing in the Dodger bullpen. Young left-hander's been up earlier. 1 ball and no strikes. And ball 2. This is the 10th meeting of the year between the two clubs, and the Giants have won 7 of 9. So Mattingly and Honeycutt trying to come from behind against the world champion manager Bruce Bochy. 2-0. And ball 3. So Bolsinger now 92 pitches. Grandal going out to talk. 3-0 the count to Crawford. Take a look at that last pitch. Pretty good breaking ball. Just missed the strike zone. I think Grandal felt that Bolsinger was a little annoyed that wasn't called a strike. So Yasmani went out to soothe his feathers a little bit. Waiting on deck, Matt Duffy. Three balls and no strikes. And they let him swing, and he hits one into the gap in right center. That's going to bounce against the wall. Belt will score. Into second with the double goes Brandon Crawford, and the Giant lead is 5-3. So the Dodgers had back-to-back doubles from Peterson and Turner in the third, and the Giants return the favor. Back-to-back doubles by Belt and Crawford. He went down to get a breaking ball that might have been out of the strike zone, and a long double to short hop the wall. So 1 out, and now Matt Duffy trying to pick up Crawford. Duffy has flied to right and struck out. Time now. Grandal going to the mound. Might even have been sent to the mound by the bench to give Coulombe a little more time to warm up. Honeycutt on the phone to see if he's ready or not. No move yet. And breaking ball away, ball 1. For Matt Duffy, when you talk to him about his development as a player, he talks about a book that he felt truly influenced him. It was a book written by sports psychologist Harvey Dorfman. A lot of people have talked about that for a long time. It's called The Mental Keys to Hitting, but It teaches you how to relax and at the same time be aggressive at the plate. He's read the book, he says, at least 8 times. Off the plate. Brandon Crawford just doubled in belt. 41 RBIs for Crawford, leading all shortstops in that area. And now Bolsinger is struggling, apparently, getting close to 100 pitches, and he's behind 3-0 to Duffy. Duffy has a half a dozen home runs. Blanco on deck. 3-0. Question is he hitting? And he takes for ball 4. So Mike Bolsinger has struck out 6. He has walked 3. He's allowed 8 hits. He's losing 5-3. Don Mattingly is going to the bullpen. And we'll be right back. 5-3 Giants. .4:15, the Giants will be here with Hudson and Frias. Then Sunday at 5:05, it will be Lincecum and Anderson, and then the club goes on the road for 10 days. Chicago, Miami, and Arizona before coming back and facing the New York Mets. Daniel Coulombe, we told the story once before. If he goes on to fame and fortune, he'll have the German Luftwaffe to thank. There aren't many World War II stories these days, but Coulombe has one to tell. He's the grandson of the late Bertrand Frenchy Coulombe, then a staff sergeant and a flight engineer on a B-17, which was chewed up and crippled by enemy gunfire during the raid over Berlin, and trying desperately to limp back to an Allied air base in England. Well, mid-flight, a German fighter came up from behind, and of course the B-17 was so crippled it was a dead duck. The German aircraft, however, followed the bomber for a while, knew he could have shot it down easily, and turned away. Well, 40 years later, through a newspaper ad, the two opposing pilots met, and the incredible story was documented in a book. Might someday be made a movie. So Coulombe knows one thing. The German ace named Franz Stiegler had taken out the sitting duck, he wouldn't be here. If the pilot had followed orders, my grandfather would have died, he said. It's just crazy to think about it. So Daniel is here thanks to the German fighter pilot. And here's Gregor Blanco. 2 on, 1 out. And a drive. Peterson on the run. A diving backhand rolling catch. And gets the ball back in the infield. And Jock is shaken up. Another highlight package by the kid. Wow. You know, I made a statement, I don't know, a few days ago. And I said that Jock Peterson may be the best fielding defensive center fielder the Dodgers ever had. And of course everybody says, whoa, wait a minute. Yeah, Duke Snyder, Willie Davis. Well, the emphasis was on May, but this kid defensively is as good as anybody I've seen. And I don't mean just highlight plays. It's the way he gets a jump, the way his routes are in getting to the ball. He's truly something special. Oh, admittedly, you could make a highlight reel just on the plays like this one. I mean, he's a long way from the ball, and yet he can do it. Wow. So Blanco talking to Angel Pagan after being robbed. Colon very fortunate not to have given up at least a base hit, maybe more. Heston up there with 2 on and 2 out, and it's 5-3 Giants. Fastball whacked down the left field line. Foul. Boy, not by much. Heston singled up the middle in the 5th inning. Apparently not a bad hitting pitcher. He has a half a dozen hits. 5 runs, 8 hits, no errors for the Giants. 3 runs, 6 hits, no errors for the Dodgers. And of course, one other asterisk and footnote: if Peterson is going to be the best center fielder the Dodgers ever had, he's going to have to play at least 10 years. But he's awfully good with the glove. Ball 1. In the inning with 1 out, Belt doubled. Crawford doubled him home. Duffy walked. So they brought in Colon, and he got Blanco on that circus catch by Peterson. 1-2. Meanwhile, Mike Bolsinger, unaccustomed to this, he was 4-0 here at Dodger Stadium, but this was not his night. Swung on and missed, and that's the inning, thanks to the play by Jock Peterson, who bailed out the Dodgers. Probably, if he doesn't make the catch, 2 more runs score instead of the only one that came in. So we're heading to the bottom of the 6th. 1 more look. What a play. And it's 5-3 Giants. The 6th inning, Dodgers will have Justin Turner, Adrian Gonzalez, and Howie Kendrick. Turner, hit by a pitch in the 1st inning, doubled home Peterson, and Gonzalez then singled him home. That was a 2-run inning in the 3rd. Dodgers had been trailing 4-1. Then it was 4-3. Now the Giants lead 5-3. And here's the redhead. 5 runs, 8 hits for the Giants, 3 runs, 6 hits for the Dodgers. Off speed for a strike. 0-1. Chris Heston. And a line drive over the leaping Crawford all the way to the wall. Turner on his way with his second double. So Turner has just been unbelievable with the bat. I mean, day in and day out, getting an applause from number 22, Clayton Kershaw. Take another look. Pitch right in his wheelhouse around the knees. Turner now has a dozen doubles. Adrian Gonzalez lined out to left and singled home Turner in the 3rd inning. You would not say that Chris Heston is impressive, not tonight. And ball 1. Heston, among other things, has 1 strikeout, and that was the pitcher Bollinger. The veteran left-hander Jeremy Affeldt tuning up with Ethier due up in the inning. That's off the plate. 2-0. So there's Jeremy. Seems like he's been with the Giants forever. Can't remember a game without him. Of course, he's been a pro since 1997. There's a line drive backhanded by Belt in foul ground. Boy, that is rare. Normally you say to yourself, if the ball is fair, he might catch it. But this was in foul ground, and he's still able to backhand it. Great play by Brandon Belt. Wow. Take another look. And it was not to his glove side. Well, that was a super play. So 1 out. Here's Kendrick. Way out in front of a changeup. Howie singled in the 2nd inning on a no-ball 2-strike count and eventually came to score. And then last time up in the 3rd, hit into a double play. Fastball hit up the middle, smothered by Panic, gets up and throws him out. Not only does he take a base hit away, he takes a run away with that play. Stopping at 3rd is Turner. Had the ball gotten through, Turner walks home. So first, the great play by Belt. Now a dazzling play by Panic. Take another look. That's worth another look. Ball hit to his right. Interesting, too, before the pitch, Panic was moving to his left, and he had to come back and make that dazzling stop and out at first. So back-to-back defensive plays here, thwarting the Dodgers, and the batter is Andre Ethier. So Affeldt does not come in, and Ethier takes ball 1. On deck, Yasmani Grandal. 2 out, 6th inning. 5-3 Giants. Heston hanging on. Andre Ethier, representing the potential tying run, has hit 101 home runs here at Dodger Stadium, and Posey going out to talk to Heston. And now they've decided, you know what, after 1 pitch, why have I got Affeldt warming up if I don't bring him in with back-to-back left-handers? And of course what that would do is turn Grandal around to bat right-handed. So Heston will be coming out, and we'll be right back. is brought to you by Nissan. Choose Nissan today for great offers on our most exciting lineup ever. Shop at ChooseNissan.com. And by DraftKings. Play daily fantasy baseball for free on DraftKings.com. Use promo code BLUECREW for free entry. Bottom of the sixth inning, Chris Heston very fortunate. After a leadoff double, Gonzalez lost a possible hit, although the ball was declared foul when Brandon Belt caught it. And then Kendrick definitely losing a base hit and a run. So Affeldt, interesting now, you have the left-handers Colomb, whose grandfather was a staff sergeant on a B-17. Jeremy Affeldt's father was a bombardier on a B-52. His dad retired from the Air Force and became a 911 operator. Now, with a 1-ball, no-strike count on Ethier, Van Slyke is the batter and takes a strike. 1-1. Heston made 75 pitches. He did not have an easy inning, maybe the fifth, where he retired the side in order, but he was in trouble pretty much all the time. Fastball lifted to straightaway center, right towards the glove of Angel Pagan. End of story. So for the Dodgers, a leadoff double and a couple of great defensive plays for Bochy and for Chris Heston. And at the end of 6, Giants 5, Dodgers 3. Matchup for tomorrow. Tim Hudson, 4-6, with a high ERA, a little more than 4.5. Carlos Frias, 4-4. His ERA is over 4. So that'll be a good scramble. Game 2. And remember, it starts at 4:15. Sunday, it'll be Tim Lincecum against Brett Anderson at 5:05. Van Slyke, who batted for Ethier, then stays in the game in left field. Daniel Colomb getting ready now to pitch to Nori Aoki. Aoki 2 for 3. Single in the first, single in the third, rode home on the slam by Posey, and last time up hit into a double play. Aoki, tough hitter, and the numbers tell you that. Ball 1. Aoki batting .319. Time not quite ready. Aoki's dad is an insurance salesman, and his mom is a piano teacher. One and one. Interesting how things worked out for Aoki. His oldest brother, Shota, moved to San Francisco last year to study English. So when Nori signed with the Giants, the brothers were united in pursuit of the same thing, to learn English. Check swing for a strike. 1-2. Aoki is 5'9", maybe 180. Terrific clutch hitter. One and two. Aoki's been hit 4 times this year and slaps it to left. Van Slyke is there. Had to go to one knee to get the ball under the lights. When you're out there and that ball is in the air, a lot of times it's in the bank of lights. And the hitter hits that ball straight, and the outfielder has to drop to a knee to get under the lights and pick it up against the sky. It's tough, but they all learn to do it. So they get Aoki, and the batter now Joe Panik, who made the big play on the ball hit by Kendrick and prevented the Dodgers from scoring Turner in the last inning. Josh Raven gets up in the Dodger bullpen. Hard throwing right-hander. They'll be hitting for Coulombe. He's due up third in the bottom of the 7th. Fastball jammed him. Foul back. 1 ball and 1 strike to Joe Panik. No panic in Joe Panik. Last year he was in a vital role as the Giants went on to the championship. He's from a town up the Hudson Valley back in New York. Little town is called Hopewell Junction. Less than 3,000 people there. His older brother was a catcher at Canisius College and is now an assistant coach. And ball 3. Panik graduated from high school with a 4.0 grade point average. Three and 1. And ball 4 for Panik, coming to that little high school, John Jay High School. His name is the only entry under distinguished alumni on the school's Wikipedia page. So Panik has made it. Listening now to Bill Hayes, the first base coach. Panik has 2 stolen bases. And now here's Pagan, grounded out, walked, and struck out. On deck, Buster Posey. And that missed. Ball 1. 1-0. Cologne's from nearby Scottsdale. Went to Texas Tech. Signed by the Dodgers just 3 years ago, the 25th round. Fastball, curveball, changeup. Fouled away. That fastball might get it to 92. That was 90. Curveball is very effective. And a good changeup. One ball and 1 strike to Angel Pagan. Big curveball for a strike. Pagan hitting .362 right-handed and .238 left. One ball and 2 strikes. Colombe 5'10", 195. Check swing on a foul ball, though the count remains 1-2. So Pagan up there with 2 strikes again. Colomb with a new ball. Last year, Colomb really had a ride from Class A Rancho Cucamonga to Dodger Stadium, made 5 major league appearances. And here he is up and down this year. 1-2 to Pagan. Fastball fouled away at 91. Waiting on deck, Buster Posey singled, hit a grand slam, and fly to right. Giants are not particularly well rested. They played in Seattle, but they didn't get to bed till the wee small hours this morning. Saw Posey yawn. That's why. Fastball smothered. 2-2. So Buster trying to time the pitcher. Two balls, 2 strikes. Get that fastball down around the knees. Pagan still able to catch up to it a little bit. And the count stays 2-2. So Heston made 75 pitches. Bolsinger made 97 pitches. And the Giants lead 5-3 in the 7th. The Dodgers have Grandal and Rollins, and then the pitcher spot in the bottom of the 7th. 2-2 to Angel. And another foul ball. When Pagan talks about where he grew up on the north coast of Puerto Rico, it was a drug and gang ridden, full of projects, a very tough way to grow up. Baseball saved his life. His first coach was his mother. His father played amateur baseball, and his mom was a rather accomplished softball player, and she was good enough to play in a men's league. 2-2. Fastball. A bloop to center. Here comes Jott, making believe he would catch it. No chance of catching up to it. So a pop fly single by Pagan. And the Giants have 2 on with 1 out. And Buster Posey coming up.
Number 28.
In case you weren't with us, Posey had 2 grand slams in his career. Got a breaking ball up and hit it out into the Dodger bullpen. The 3rd grand slam of his career. Dodgers were leading 1-0. That made it 4-1 Giants. Then it got to be 4-3. Now it's 5-3. And Coulombe will be coming out with Posey and Belt due up. And we'll be back. 2015 Esurance MLB All-Star Game ballot right now at Dodgers.com/vote. Voting exclusively online this season and available on your computer, tablet, and smartphone. You can vote up to 35 times at Dodgers.com/vote. Josh Raven, local boy, born in West Hills, went to Chatsworth High School. Josh originally selected by the Reds back in 2006. He is 6'5", 210, throws very hard, has been in the minor leagues for a long time, started in 2006, and finally had a look at the big leagues this year. So he's dedicated, trying to get Posey, who is 2-for-3. So it's been Bolsinger, then Coulomb, and now Raven. 2 on, Panic at second, Pagan at first. They both run well. Foul back. One thing about Posey, and you can expect that, of course, from a catcher, but he has grounded into 9 double plays. Casey McGee leads the club in that unenviable department. McGee's grounded into 14 double plays. For the Dodgers, it would be Adrian Gonzalez, who's grounded in 11. 0-1. And a one-hopper off the glove of Turner, picked up in the air by Rollins, and the bases are loaded. Too hot to handle as Posey gets himself a base hit and almost kills the Dodger third baseman.
Number 9.
Boy, that thing was ripped. So the bases are loaded. Posey's having a big night as he almost takes the glove off Turner. Boy, that thing was really hit. Backing up, the shortstop Rollins catches it, but he has no play anywhere. So the bases loaded, 1 out. And here's Brandon Belt. Struck out, grounded out, and doubled. Fastball at 98. Every time you see Raven, and every time you see him throw 97, 98, your first thought is, what took him so long? Why over 10 years in the minor leagues? Because it's so darn tough to make it. One ball and 1 strike. One out, 7th inning. Giants trying to open it up. They lead 5-3, and they have the bases loaded. Panic, Pagan, and Posey, the P-men, are out there, and that's ball 2. 2-1. By the way, in case you're wondering, Belt does not have a grand slam. He was just able to keep the bat back. So Panic is at third, Pagan is at second, and Posey is at first. The P-men. 2-1. Two and 2. Dodgers desperate to keep it a game. Giants threatening to run away with it here. 2-2 the count. Crawford waiting on deck. Fastball got him looking at 97, catching the outside part of the plate, and Belt unhappy. So Belt caught looking at a fastball with the bases loaded, and with 2 out.
Brandon Crawford.
Brandon Crawford. There's the fastball. Belt angry, but kept his wits about him and stays in the game. And Laz rings him out. So here's Brandon Crawford. Grounded out, struck out, and doubled. Remember, he has 41 RBIs. He's the big RBI man of all the shortstops. And ball 1. Crawford, 47 runs batted in with the bases loaded and a career .261 batting average. 41 RBIs for the year. And that's on the hands. 97-mile-an-hour fastball really jammed him. 1 ball and 1 strike. I'll say one thing, and maybe the speed gun has become so prominent, but going back years ago when I first started and for a long time, you never saw so many fellas who could throw 95 and up. 97, 98. Today, it's almost commonplace. Fastball at 98. So with 1 out, panic walk, Pagan singled, then Posey got an infield single, Belt struck out, and now 1-2 the count to Brandon Crawford. Fastball outside part of the plate. Questionable with 2 strikes. That was a defensive swing just to get a little bit of it. Raven 11 pitches and all heat. Crawford, by the way, has 3 grand slams in his career. He hit one last May in Cincinnati. 1-2. And almost had that getaway. Can't just stay and throw fastballs. You got to come up with something else once in a while. That was a good block. That was a hard curveball in the dirt and a nice save by Yasmani Grandal. He wasn't trying to catch it with the runners all in front of him. His job was to block it, which he did. 2 balls, 2 strikes, 2 out. Bases loaded. 5-3 Giants, and Raven trying to get the last out with Crawford. Off speed, little breaking ball, and he goes 3-2. Well, so that's the guess. If you're the hitter, he's shown me a couple of breaking balls, but he hasn't thrown them for strikes. He's been giving me 98-mile-an-hour fastballs, so I'll be looking fastball. And let's see who wins. Fastball is low for ball 4. Everybody moves up 90 feet, and it is 6-3 San Francisco. So Crawford gets the walk and a run batted in. Posey goes to second. Pagan goes to third. And Panic goes to the dugout with a run. That run is charged to Coulombe. And now the batter, Matt Duffy. Duffy flied to right, struck out, and walked. Fastball at 97. Duffy 0 for 2, but hitting .290. Pagan at third, Posey at second, Crawford at first. 6-3 Giants. Way off the plate, ball 2. In looking at Josh Raven's numbers coming in, 2 wins, 1 loss, but more importantly, you get down to walks and strikeouts. No walks, 7 strikeouts. Juan Nicasio up in the pen, and Rick Honeycutt perhaps just trying to slow Raven down, and there's Juan. With 2 out, the Dodgers will be batting for Raven anyway. Bases loaded, 2 out, 2 balls, and no strikes on Matt Duffy. And the Giants lead 6-3. Trying to beat the Dodgers 8 out of 10. Oh, now, after a long, hard day of cheering and sweating it out, what else can a man do? And ball 3 to Matt Duffy. Waiting on deck, Gregor Blanco. 3 balls, no strikes. And a strike. Everything's 97 and 98. But when he drops into the 80s, he's not been able to throw strikes. 3-1. Fastball under the glove of Rollins. 1 run scores. Here comes the throw by Van Slyke, not in time. So a 2-run single opens it up, and it is 8-3 Giants as Matt Duffy, the boy from Long Beach, breaks it open. So Pagan scores easily. Posey hustles in. Crawford goes all the way to third. It is now a 3-run inning. And the batter will be Gregor Blanco. So 5 runs charged to Bolsinger, 2 runs charged to Coulombe, and then Posey scored, charged to Raven. Buster huffing and puffing, but brings in a big run. So 8-3 San Francisco. 8 runs, 11 hits. Dodgers 3 runs, 7 hits, much to the disappointment of a sellout crowd here at Dodger Stadium. And here's Blanco. Blanco single to left, struck out, and was robbed of an extra base hit and a couple of RBIs on a diving catch by Jock Peterson. And that's a base hit. 1 more run scores. It's a 4-run inning, and the Giants now lead 9-3. So Blanco 2 hits and a run. Crawford brings in the run. Duffy goes to second. And the pitcher, Jeremy Affeldt, coming up. And a strike. Two on, 2 out, 4 in. 2 4-run innings for the Giants tonight. 0-2 to Jeremy. We've been talking about contrast. You know how the Giants are #1 on the road. The Dodgers are poor on the road. Giants struggling at home. Dodgers have been wonderful at home, etc. The pitchers, Bolsinger was 4-0 at home. Heston was 4-1 on the road. Always a direct contrast. There's another contrast, and it's brought to mind tonight when Bolsinger was relieved by Coulombe and Raven. Bruce Bochy's bullpen of late, they have had 18 runners inherited and the bullpen has not allowed a run. Foul ball. Dodgers have Grandal, Rollins, and Raven spot. Nicasio in the pen. So the Dodgers got a run and the Giants got 4, and then the Dodgers came right back with 2. So it was a tough 4-3 game, and the Giants had just taken it and run away. A run in the 6th and 4 in the 7th to lead 9-3. One and 2. Tomorrow at 4:15, we think about him because there have been 4 double plays in the game, 2 on each side. Tim Hudson pitching for the Giants. He's induced the opposition into hitting into 14 double plays. Affeldt mercifully strikes out. 9 men come to the plate and 4 come home. And at the end of 6.5 innings, Buster Posey and company leading Daniel Colomé and the Dodgers 9-3. To 3 Giants. Bottom of the 7th inning, and with Jeremy Affeldt, the left-hander, on the mound, that turns Grandal around to bat right-handed, and then Jimmy Rollins will bat right-handed, and we'll see a hitter for Josh Raven. Raven, by the way, made 26 pitches, gave up 2 runs. 0-1 to Grandal. Yasmani's power is all from the left side. All 8 home runs hit left-handed. As a right-handed batter, he's almost even. No home runs, no runs batted in. His average falls way off hitting right-handed. Yasmani came into the game hitting .279. And he is hitting .227 as a right-hand batter. No balls, 2 strikes. Fastball to the dirt and all the way to the backstop. Jeremy Affeldt, who has certainly been around for the Giants, but he spent quite a career with the Royals and then the Rockies, briefly with the Reds, and he's been with the Giants for the last 7 years. 1-2. Big breaking ball. Jeremy is 6'4" and 220. 36 years old and was originally a third-round pick. Went to Northwestern Christian High School in Spokane. And for Grandal, that'll be the end of that. 1 away.
Number 11, Jimmy Rollins.
Jimmy Rollins will now turn around and hit right-handed. Rollins hitting 196. His power is left-handed, hitting 220 right. But as you've been following the ball club, Jimmy's been struggling in the middle of June. Chopper to the hole, backhanded by Crawford. The long throw right on the money. 2 down. Alex Guerrero will be coming up. Guerrero will bat for Raven. Pinch hitting is about as tough a job as there is in the game. And Guerrero has been absolutely wonderful in that difficult role. Guerrero as a pinch hitter batting .368. 3 home runs and 9 runs batted in. Overall batting average .287. And ball 1. So Raven made 26 pitches and he gives way for the hitter, and Nicasio throwing in the pen. 9 runs, 12 hits for the Giants. Line drive at Crawford. So Guerrero a tough out at any time. Lines to short. And we have 7 innings in the books, and it's certainly not a bestseller in Los Angeles. Giants 9, Dodgers 3. Well, first of all, coming from behind, down 1-0, Buster Posey hit a grand slam home run, and then the hits really started to go fast and furious in the 6th and 7th inning. The Dodgers could only answer with Justin Turner, who was hit by a pitch and had a couple of doubles, knocked in a run and scored one, but that's not enough to follow the Giants, who have burned a hole in the schedule as far as the Dodgers are concerned. Giants are on their way to beating the Dodgers 8 of 10. They've already beaten them 3 straight. The only 2 Dodger victories in the 10 games were here at Dodger Stadium. Frias beat Lincecum April the 27th, 8-3. And Greinke beat Vogelsong at the end of April, 2 days later, 7-3. And of course, the last 3 games in San Francisco, the Dodgers were completely shut down. So Nicasio is asked to pick up the pieces and get through the innings. 8th inning, 9-3 San Francisco. Ball one. Nori Aoki, 2 singles, hit into a double play, fly to left, batting .318. And ball 2. And of course, one of the more important players for the Giants is not close to playing, and that would be Hunter Pence, out with the bad wrist. That's a strike. So Pence reduced to being a spectator, but the Giants trying to do well, and they are, leading 9-3. And a fly ball. Jock Peterson is there. Talking about Hunter Pence, you know, last year he had 20 home runs, 74 runs batted in, hit .277, and played for the second year in a row a full 162 games. 2 years ago he had 27 home runs, 99 RBIs. So they're missing a vital spark plug in the offense. Ball one. Joe Panic hit into a double play, lined out, walked twice, scored a run. 2-0. When the Dodgers hit in the 8th inning, they'll have Puig, Peterson, and Turner. If anybody gets on, Gonzalez. 2-1. Giants put men aboard, and they did what has made them #1. Runners in scoring position with 2 out, hitting .290. And that's lifted down the right field line, hooking in the corner and going foul. 2-2. Puig. That right knee stained dirt. Looking at what he's done, he hadn't been on base. He did make that diving try for Posey's looping base hit back in the 2nd inning. Looked like he was limping just a tad. 0 for 3. His pride might hurt too. Foul the other way. Joe Panic. A couple of years ago, Giants had Marco Scutaro. He was incredible, vital to their championship. He went down with a bad back, and everybody thought, well, the Giants are going to be terribly weak at second base. And voila, Joe Panic arrived. 2-2. Fireworks show after the game. The fireworks tonight provided by the Giants. 9 runs, 12 hits, including the grand slam by Posey. The Dodgers 3 runs, 7 hits. Crowd of over 52,000. And strike 3 called. So Nicasio takes care of Panic, and that'll bring up Angel Pagan. The paid attendance tonight, 52,503. 52,503. That would be the 5th sellout this year. Giants have put on a pretty good offensive display tonight. Ball 1 to Pagan. Giants are 3 for 6 with 8 RBIs tonight, batting with runners in scoring position and 2 outs. On the year, the Giants lead the major leagues in that situation, hitting .295. It was .290 when the game began. Any way you cut it, They have a fine offense even without Pence. Ground ball backhanded by Gonzalez, and that's the third out. For the Giants to go out in order, it's only the second time. The other was the fourth inning when Bolsinger struck out the side, and it's 9-3 San Francisco. Giants have you Heston, then Affel, and now George Contos out of Lincolnwood, Illinois. He majored in economics at Northwestern University, and George is Greek on both sides of his family. His mom and dad's family, both from a 2,000-year-old town outside of Sparta in Greek called Geraki. His father grew up in a house that was 200 years old, and his family immigrated to the States when they were children. George is 6'3", 215 pounds, 30 years old, and originally drafted by the Yankees in the 5th round in 2006. And as George said, with his mother and dad's background, he spoke Greek long before he could speak English. So George Contos working on Yasiel Puig. Puig is 0 for 3, batting .315. Skies one to right, but it's playable. Blanco is there. One pitch, one away. Puig going 0 for 4. Now the batter is Peterson.
Number 31, John Peterson.
Peterson flied to center, doubled to right and scored a run, flied to left, and made a sensational catch in the 6th inning on a ball hit by Gregor Blanco. Ball 1. Panic way out in shallow right field. The outfield, however, plays Peterson straight away. Matt Duffy all alone on the left side. 1-1. Two and 1 the count to Jock. 1 out in the 8th inning. 9-3 Giants. Dodgers scored a run in the 2nd, 2 in the 3rd. They trailed only 4-3, and then the game just disintegrated when the Giants scored 1 in the 6th, and 4 in the 7th. 2-2 the count to Jock Peterson. And a drive to right. Back on the ball goes Blanco, and on the track makes the catch. So Peterson just misses, and we have 2 out in the 8th inning, and the batter will be Justin Turner.
Baseman, number 10, Justin Turner.
Justin Turner hit by a pitch, doubled and scored in the 3rd inning after driving in Peterson, and led off with a double and was stranded in the 6th inning. 2 fine defensive plays. Belt on a ball hit and that he took away from Gonzalez, and Kendrick losing a base hit on a ball stopped by Panic. That's a strike. Giants in the 9th inning will have Posey, Belt, and Crawford. Oh and 1 in the dirt. 1 ball, 1 strike. Heston, Affeldt, and Contos. I think Contos, we'll have to double check. We had a note that he had given up only 2 home runs in his career. Let's see what he's done this year. He's allowed 2, so he's now allowed 4 home runs in his career. The point of it was 2 of them are here. 1, Jock Peterson, and the other is the answer of a trivia question. Back in 2013, Clayton Kershaw hit one over the center field fence opening day. It was against Contos. Long drive, that thing should carry, and does. Home run for Turner. Not much more than a murmur of protest, and that makes it 9-4 in favor of the Giants. For Turner, a perfect night. Hit by a pitch, 2 doubles, and now a home run. Breaking ball up, and Justin bangs it out. For Turner, he has 7 home runs. He now has 28 runs batted in. The redhead gets 5s. And the batter is Adrian Gonzalez. So 2 fly balls. Peterson's was pretty deep, and then Turner reaches the seats. Just off the plate. 1 ball, no strikes. That's a strike. 1-1 to Adrian. Lined out to left. Single to center. Lined out to Brandon Belt. Ball 2. Contos, when he went to a Montessori preschool, he only spoke Greek. He couldn't understand any of the other children in class. So twice a week he attended Greek school for an hour and a half after regular school. Tough load. And he still speaks, writes, and reads Greek fluently. He had Tommy John surgery in 2009. Took enough classes as he rehabbed to get his degree in finance from Northwestern. That's the same school where his grandfather worked as a custodian. Wow. And Wilfer Gonzalez chasing an off-speed pitch. Down he goes. Dodgers get one. And we're heading to the ninth. 9-4 San Francisco. Dodgers and Mets, and stay after the game. See the sky light up. A spectacular 4th of July fireworks show presented by Cirque du Soleil. For more information, go to Dodgers.com/promotions. July 4th, just around the corner. Dodgers go out after Sunday's game. 4 games in Chicago, the weekend in Miami, and 3 games in Arizona. Then July 2 is an off day, and the Mets followed by the Phillies coming in. Well, here's Buster Posey. Big night for Buster. Of course, he's had many of them. Ball 1. Singled in the 2nd inning. Pop fly to shallow right field. Puig made a headlong dive but couldn't catch it. Next time up, he hit a grand slam home run. Flied to right and almost took the hands of Justin Turner at third. He blistered a single in the 7th inning. Two and one. Posey hitting .297. And that's ball 3. Tomorrow at 4:15, Tim Hudson and Carlos Frias. Sunday at 5:05, Tim Lincecum and left-hander Brett Anderson. That's a strike. Home run by the Giants gives them 54 home runs. The Dodgers have 84. Fouled away. For the Dodgers, it's been Bolsinger, Colum, Raven, and Nicasio. The Giants, Heston, Affeldt, and Contos. And the way things are shaping up, Heston will win. He'll be 5-1 on the road. Bolsinger will be 4-2. And ball 4 to Posey.
Number 9, Brandon Belt.
Brandon Belt has struck out, grounded out, doubled, and struck out again. Nine runs, 12 hits for the Giants. 4 runs, 8 hits for the Dodgers. 0-1 to Brandon. Giants really waiting for Belt to break loose. One and one. Brandon's from Nacogdoches in Texas. He was born in a house that his father built. His father, a geometry teacher, and his mom's a hairdresser. The big Texan with a 1-ball, 1-strike count. Ball 2. Two and one. Brandon Belt, an impressive 6'5", checks in about 220. And ball 3. Belt has never had any success against Clayton Kershaw. Of course, he joins a distinguished group, but he's something like 3 for 32 with a batting average of less than 100. Belt last year only played 60 some odd games. 3-2. Of course, Belt has company, and I don't mean facetiously. He has company with the Giants. And the two guys who have hit Clayton, two you might not expect, Mac Duffy and Joaquin Arias. Buster Posey is hitting maybe 200 against Clayton. The Belt goes down, and the batter is Brandon Crawford. Crawford grounded out, struck out, doubled, and walked. Just to conclude that musing about Belt and Kershaw, Belt is 3 for 34. That reduces his average from .094 to .088, and he has struck out 19 times against Clayton. Crawford 1 for 3 with a walk. One and one. When the Dodgers come up in the bottom of the 9th inning, they'll have Howie Kendrick, Scott Van Slyke, and Yasmani Grandal. That's fouled away. Buster Posey having the big night. 3 hits and a walk and a grand slam home run. Buster in his career has had 10 4-hit games, and he's even had 2 5-hit games. So he's special. And by the way, Buster's first career hit came right here at Dodger Stadium. It was a single against Jeff Weaver, Jarrett's older brother. That was September the 19th, 2009. So Posey held on by Adrian Gonzalez. 1 out in the 9th. 9-4 Giants. Nicasio, the 4th Dodger pitcher and the 7th pitcher in the game. 2-2. Comebacker knocked down by Nicasio and throws him out. Taking second is Posey, and the batter will be Matt Duffy. Matt Duffy flied to right, struck out, walked, and singled to left. Duffy with 2 RBIs, ready to do some more damage. 9-4. San Francisco, top of the ninth. One ball and no strikes. And Duffy, fly ball to Puig. So no runs, no hits. There was a walk and a man left. And we are ready to take a look at the bottom of the ninth inning. 9-4 San Francisco. And certainly the standout player on the field would be Buster Posey. He hit a single to right, and then in the third inning, I think he broke the heart of the Dodgers when he came up and hit a grand slam home run, the third of his career, well hit into the Dodger bullpen. And then the Giants took it from there. They scored another run in the sixth, 4 more in the seventh, and pretty much run off and hit. So Posey, spark plugs, and now Michael Broadway will be picking up to try and get some outs. Broadway is from Paducah, Illinois, long way from Broadway. He was originally drafted by the Braves back in 2005. He was a 4th-round pick. He's bounced around a bit. Broadway signed with the Padres after the Braves. Then he was in the Nationals organization and now with the Giants. 6'5", 215. 28 years old, and strike one. Basically 2 pitches. At 6'5", 215, he has a fastball clocked, they say, as high as 98, and a hard slider. On the hands, here comes Crawford to gobble it up. So Kendrick rolls to short. Howie winds up 1 for 4, robbed of a second possible hit. Scott Van Slyke inherited a 1-ball, no-strike count on Ethier in the 6th inning. Faced Jeremy Affeldt and flied to center. So 0 for 1. Van Slyke hitting .272. Broadway tells a story. Happened about 4 years ago. He underwent cleanup surgery on his pitching elbow. Missed the whole year instead of the 6 weeks he was supposed to be sidelined. But the pain considered mind at first got worse and worse and worse. So he went to the orthopedic surgeon, James Andrews, to have another, quote, exploratory procedure. They hooked him up to the IV. They're about ready to wheel him into the operating room, and the lights went out in the hospital. That's ball 3. There was a power outage. Andrews was like, well, we can't start surgery with backup generators. So Andrews, scheduled to leave town within hours, offered to perform the surgery when he returned. And Broadway said, well, my dad and I don't feel like waiting. There was also some uncertainty about the cause of the pain and whether surgery was necessary. Well, he wasn't going to quit baseball. The elbow was going to get better or not, and either way, he just decided to go home and play it out. Fastball for ball 4. So what they did with Broadway, he received multiple platelet-rich plasma shots, started working with an instructor. Eventually, the elbow pain became manageable, and then it went away. Don't know what would have happened if he had a second surgery, except the lights went out in the hospital. And with one out, he walks Van Slyke, and now Grandal back to a better position, hitting left-handed. And ball 1. Grandal singled to center, flied to center, and struck out. Ball 2. Well, we haven't seen Broadway throw nearly as high as he had thrown in the past. He had been clocked as high as 98. Of course, after what he's gone through, he's got to be happy just to be on the mound in the big leagues. Strike, and he got it to 96. 2-1. Mike Broadway. Golconda, Illinois, his hometown. Went to Pope County High School. And ball 3. Nine runs, 12 hits for the Giants. 4 runs, 8 hits for the Dodgers. No errors in the game. And we have 1 out in the 9th. Van Slyke walked. He's at first base. Belt's not holding. 3-1. 3-2. Don't forget tomorrow now, 4:15 game. Tim Hudson, Carlos Frias. Hudson is 4-6. Carlos Frias 4-4. Off speed and ball 4. So Broadway with 1 out has walked 2. Dave Righetti going out to try and counsel him a little bit. Mike Broadway had been at Sacramento and was in 22 games down there. They brought him up because he had a brilliant earned run average of 1.3.
Now batting for the Dodgers, shortstop, number 11, Jimmy Rollins. Dodger fans, let's go!
Jimmy Rollins coming up, fly to center, grounded sharply into a double play, and rolled out to short. So Jimmy 0 for 3 with 2 on and 1 out. 9th inning, 9-4 Giants. Trying to beat the Dodgers 4 straight. And ball one. So Broadway suddenly can't throw a strike. Santiago Casilla, their closer, is forced to get up here because Broadway is on the wild side. At Sacramento, before they called him up, he had walked 6 and struck out 39. A different story up here. Fastball popped up. Panic is calling and waiting. Infield fly rule is invoked. And the Dodgers are down to their last out. Alberto Callaspo coming up. The Callaspo batting for Nicasio.
Number 5, Alberto Callaspo.
Callaspo, remember last night, and of course there's Nicasio having come in to be the 4th Dodger pitcher. Nicasio got people out in the 8th and in the 9th. Callaspo was asked to bunt last night with 2 on. Couldn't do it. He's had 9 career bunts in his career. Strike. So he swung away and hit into a double play. And of course that sent Kike Hernandez to 3rd. Jimmy Rollins came up to the plate. And young Keone Kela balked. Hernandez coming in, and the Dodgers win 1-0. 0-1. And a line drive down the left field line, base hit. Nice grab by Aoki. The throw to the plate is not in time. Van Slyke just scores. Boy, that'd have been a bad play if Van Slyke was thrown out for the last out. And Aoki came awfully close. Bruce Bochy shakes his head and mutters and waves to the bullpen. When he was out in front 9-4, the last thing Bochy was thinking about was having to bring in Santiago Casilla. So Callaspo base hit, but a wonderful play by Aoki. Stumbles, regains, and winds up and fires. And Van Slyke just did make it. The left hand hitting the plate before Posey could tag him. So it's 9-5 Giants. We'll be back. As he came in, an easy chore to pitch the 9th inning with a 5-run lead. But he was wild. He walked 2 with 2 outs, gave up a base hit to Callaspo, and he comes out. And Santiago Casilla is asked to get the last out, and the last out is Yasiel Puig. So the Dodgers down by 4, and Puig represents 3 potential runs. Casilla has given up 3 home runs. Great ERA of 2.3. Puig is 0 for 4 as Casilla is ready to make a pitch. Grandal and Callaspo out on the line. And ball one. Puig grounded to third, popped up to second, fouled out to first, and flied to right. Garcia, an even 6-220. He is 35 years old come July. 1-1 to Yasiel Puig. He's from the Dominican Republic, and Garcia was originally signed by the Oakland A's and pitched in Oakland up and down from Oakland to Sacramento until he came to the Giants in 2010. 1 ball and 1 strike. Fouled off 1-2. Remember Juan Uribe? I'm sure you do. Well, Garcia is from the same town as Juan Uribe. Uribe's a year older and made it to the pros 3 years before Santiago. He remembers going to Uribe's house and asking for socks, baseball socks. 2-2. So in the 9th inning, deuces are wild. 2 balls, 2 strikes, 2 out, and 2 on. Garcia, for about 6 seasons, pitched under an assumed name, Jairo Garcia, like so many Dominicans, trying to make believe he was younger than he really was. 2-2 to Puig. Jock Peterson on deck. And ball 3. So the Dodgers trying to walk their way back into the game. Three and 2 with 2 down. So the runners will be going. Grandal and Callaspo. A lot of folks up and at him now. Garcia ready, and here we go. Runners take off, swung on and foul back. Well, the chant, a little soprano voice as well. Yeah, good for you. Let's go, Dodgers. 3-2. Got him. Looked like a slider down and away. Puig strikes out, goes 0 for 5. Dodgers get 1 run on 1 hit in the 9th inning, and they lose the game 9-5. The totals on the game: 9 runs, 12 hits for the victorious Posey and his posse. And for the Dodgers, 5 runs, 9 hits, and no errors. The winning pitcher is Heston. The loser is Bolsinger. The Giants have beaten the Dodgers 8 out of 10. Tomorrow, Carlos Frias against Tim Hudson at 4:15. We'll talk to you then. Till then, for all of us, to all of you, a very pleasant good evening, everybody.